I followed somewhat of your technical analysis, and sometimes when you show, I don't know if it's actually you who does it or if you've just retweeted and kind of shown, that you agree. But I want to say you kind of showed in one of them that you had a Bitcoin maybe topping out at this bear market rally we've seen around like 40K, and then falling back down to possible retestings of the lows that we saw around 20K or even 15K, something like that, before the Bitcoin halving, and we actually see this next bull run. What are your thoughts on the overall market, right now that we're in, and where do you see us going with, obviously Bitcoin having a pretty decent fall? I think it was like the largest drop it had since FTX, a couple days ago. So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's tricky, man. And I tried to tell people, like, you have to form both a bullish and a bearish thesis. You can't just be bullish all the time, and you can't be bearish all the time. And you can use both to your advantage to make money. I know people who do that. I'm not great at shorting, and I don't necessarily mess with leverage. I do more swing trading, but there's people who short and make money off of it. My thesis was we were going to see a similar move to what we did in 2019. Now, up until about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, it seemed like it was on track where we have that retracement move. Bitcoin tops out at maybe 40K or just over 40K. It could still do that, even though we had that big sharp decline. But we are in different macro environment where the Fed just said, we're going to raise rates again. And it's also the timeline is shifted later into summer versus 2019. I think it hit that retracement peak around June, if I'm not mistaken. So there are a couple of factors which are bearish. But, Bitcoin could surprise us. It could be maybe in the next 2 weeks, all of a sudden, Gary Gensler said, oh shit, I'm going to take a big L in this Grayscale lawsuit. Let me approve a bunch of ETFs, and then the market rallies, right? So you kind of have to form the thesis. What is the bearish scenario? What's likely to happen? What's the bullish scenario? Right now, I think I'm leaning more bearish because of the Fed and the macro environment. It's pretty tough, but I hope I'm wrong. And we go to 40K and then roll over a little bit and then start slowly, steadily moving upwards into the halving of next year.
I'm actually curious about the halving because throughout the history of Bitcoin, the price has basically moved in conjunction with the overall market outside of it. It's not just the crypto market, but essentially when there was quantitative easing and there was more money flowing into the market, Bitcoin was doing great. But we're in a totally different environment than the last 2 or 3 halving cycles. Do you think that this halving could go off a little differently than the last 2? The last 2, of course, we saw a lead up into the halving and then a bull run after that. But that was also in a time period where there was more liquidity in the market. Do you think there's a chance that the 4-year halving could be basically a dud this year, especially since each halving has less of an impact on the supply shock, each round?
Oh yeah, look, and there's Bitcoin maximalists and certain people are saying, no, it has to be this way. No, I've learned, man. I've learned my lesson that, once again, going back to those thesis, what's the bearish and the bullish scenarios? You have to look at both. You can't just put on your blinders and say, man, it's going to pump. I'm going to see the same thing happen. There's nothing guaranteed. No one has a crystal ball here. But to your point, it is a different scenario. And that's where I think, and once again, this is a thesis, that the Fed will, I personally think, continue to raise rates till the end of the year. I think they'll pause, and then next year, around maybe the time of the halving, maybe before or a bit after, they're going to start to cut rates because the economy won't be able to take it anymore, right? At some point, they're going to break some things, and it's going to be really bad. And then the election cycle is next year, and we've seen presidents use the Fed as a tool. Right or wrong, right? And they'll start cutting rates and the economy is great. And I think they're going to start QE next year, honestly. And once again, people may say, oh, you're crazy or whatever. But I think, once again, optics, right? Presidential election year. I think they start cutting rates. I think QE starts. And I think the timing will work out for Bitcoin. The other big catalyst is that ETF. Because even if we're not in a fully quantitative easing environment, that ETF gets approved by BlackRock, it will start porting over a lot of the capital from retirement accounts and that were in other assets. And then I think just the other day, I don't know if you guys saw it, I think it was yesterday, Blockworks reported on Lockheed Martin. They're looking to put their pension capital in crypto to get a higher return. The narrative is shifting. I think these things are aligning. The stars are aligning to a certain degree. So we'll see. Maybe I'm too bullish or optimistic there. But I think if you look at it, forget about crypto for a second, the macro, the Fed can't keep raising rates forever. They have to stop, and they're going to QE again.
It seems like Michael Saylor's thesis has been correct with what he has been doing. Michael's strategy, stock has been going crazy, his holdings, and it still has that bottom, where he's like hasn't really been reached. I just want to say. And then also, do we think Gary Gensler and Jerome Powell own some Bitcoin?
Gary Gensler for sure got some ETH.
I think Gary has some, because he was teaching about it at MIT, before, and he tried to go work for Binance. So I think he has some. I'm curious if he has some Algorand. Remember he was talking about you can build Uber on Algorand.
Man, that whole like thing, and the guy who creates a song a day on ETH, and that whole song he released on it, like all that stuff was so funny.
Sylvia McCally's Algorand, Uber on top of it. Great technology.
Oh no, Gary Shilling shit's going to get.
You just watched a clip from episode 69 of The Next Block. If you enjoyed this clip, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. To catch the entire episode, check out the video description down below for a link to that live episode, as well as links to our sponsors and our Algorand donation wallet. This donation wallet can accept all sorts of Algorand standard assets, and it's a great way to support the channel. Also, let us know down in the comments below what you think. We'd love to hear your thoughts and who you think we should have on the podcast next. We appreciate everyone that watches to the end of these videos, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks.